Autism, and the apparent rise in the number of autistic children, has become a political issue thanks to the comments and activities of Donald Trump and his pick for US Secretary of Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Autism is an epidemic, Kennedy told Congress. Genes do not cause epidemics, they can contribute to vulnerability, but you need an environmental toxin. It's like cigarettes and smoking. He has also mentioned vaccines as a possible environmental toxin, while his supporters point to things like early umbilical cord clamping, mobile phones, pesticides, and aircraft vapor trails. Both Trump and Kennedy describe autism as an emergency. 1 in 36 children are now diagnosed. Parents are understandably anxious. Autism can be debilitating and places a huge burden on families, often without enough support. But what is really behind the rise in numbers? BBC Radio 4's The Autism Curve investigated. Professor Ginny Russell of UCL confirmed an 800% increase in diagnosed autism from 1998 to 2018. Diagnosis is based on persistent difficulties in social interaction, conversation, eye contact, monologues, and restrictive repetitive behaviours like eating the same food or repeated movements. In the eyes of Russell, autism is a spectrum. It merges imperceptibly into what is considered normal behaviour. Many people struggle with conversations or fixate on routines. Across Europe and the US, similar increases in diagnosis have been recorded. In the US, the rate has jumped from 1 to 150 to 1 in 36, a 300% rise, hence the claims of crisis from Trump and Kennedy. But Professor Joshua Scott, also from UCL, discovered something else. While researching dementia, he noticed that some older patients referred for dementia actually had symptoms more consistent with undiagnosed autism. These traits have been masked by stable support networks. Once these networks fell away through retirement, bereavement, or loneliness, autistic traits became more visible. He then studied historic GP records broken down by age, gender, class, and disability. The findings showed wide variation in diagnostic rates and suggested large numbers of older people were actually never diagnosed. Between 440,000 and 1.2 million people in the UK could be undiagnosed. Modern diagnostic tools identify autism in about 3% of the population. Previous criteria identified around 1%. Women and ethnic minorities were often misdiagnosed, contributing to today's rise. The programme asked, if so many were missed before, was there something wrong with them? In 1998, Andrew Wakefield linked autism to the MMR vaccine in The Lancet. His study focused on 12 children claiming to find measles virus in their gut. Other researchers couldn't replicate the findings, and his work faced fierce criticism and was retracted. Wakefield left the UK and then moved to the US. And in the US, Wakefield was embraced by right-wing media and conspiracy theorists. He became a symbol of resistance against Big Pharma and the scientific establishment, even gaining national exposure on Fox News. The show on BBC explored the zombie afterlife of Wakefield's discredited claims. Dr. Francesca Happ explained how autism, often presenting as developmental regression around 18 months, causes parents to search for explanations. They blame moving house or, more often, vaccines given at that age. But hundreds of studies on thousands of children have found no link between vaccines and autism. Autism is largely genetic, not like eye colour, but more like height. Dozens of genes interacting. Subclinical traits in both parents can combine and push a child over the diagnostic threshold. If environmental triggers exist, they must be recent, widespread, and neurological. Older parental age, preterm births, and pregnancy infections have all increased. Modern societies are seeing more late pregnancies and more premature babies survive. The most significant cause of increased diagnosis remains the expanded understanding of autism. It was once confined to severely disabled children, many institutionalized and unseen by society. Now, autistic people are living independently, working and raising families. And to see if real rates have risen, Professor Russell studied children 10 years apart, comparing their traits, communication difficulties, trouble making friends, fear of new things. There was no spike in the group with the strongest traits. More children with milder traits were being diagnosed, likely because teachers, nurses, and doctors are just more aware of it. But autism is no longer only a scientific matter. Families are in crisis, struggling for specialist education, battling to get proper support. Trump and Kennedy are feeding on this desperation to push their own political agendas. In Republican voting, rural US communities, anti-vaccine myths have taken deep root. West Texas has already seen its first serious measles outbreak in decades. Belief in a vaccine-autism link splits down partisan lines, 35% of Republicans versus 10% of Democrats. In 2001, only 6% believed vaccines were more dangerous than the diseases they prevent. In 2024, that number was 20%, with a 26-point partisan gap. And support for Kennedy's ideas reflects a broader distrust within the establishment. Since the 2008 crash, millions have lost faith in the political and economic system. Kennedy's rise is a symptom of this decay. As Marx wrote, the ideas of the ruling class are in every epoch the ruling ideas. Today, alternative narratives online are more likely to be funded by billionaires or promoted by Russian bot farms than anything grounded in socialism or Marxism. Gramsci put it best, "The old is dying and the new cannot be born. In this interregnum, monsters are born." Scientific research continues regardless. Studies in mice show that removing certain genes cause hyperconnectivity between brain neurons and autistic behaviors. Scientists are slowly mapping the genetic networks involved, but real progress depends on priorities. Instead of $3 trillion on war or $12 billion to flatten Gaza, imagine if those resources funded medical research. The BBC Radio 4 series The Autism Curve is available on the BBC Sounds app, and I'll put a link in the description below. For more of this information, subscribe to the channel and head over to www.lefthorizons.com. You can also find these videos on audio streaming platforms such as Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Again, find them in the description below. Sign up for our newsletter and read the full article on the website. Thank you very much for watching, and we shall see you next time.